Yeah. Islam. I'm trying to be your friend, man. That's right. I'm trying to be your friend, bro. Help me out. Meet me halfway. Come on. I wanna be your friend. Peace and love. Let me be your friend. Peace and love. I said you ain't never met a more like me, and you ain't never ever gonna meet one again. Yo, let me be your friend. Peace and love. Let me be your friend. Peace and love. I said you ain't never met a more like me, and you ain't never ever gonna meet one again. I wanna be your friend. Peace and love. Yo, let me be your friend. Peace and love. Hey yo, I used to be a thug until I met the prophet. Now I'm all about love, truth, peace, and freedom. Till I return to Allah. One day we gon' meet him. I'm all about justice. That's the focus of the message. Sometimes Asiatics make me wanna forget the lessons. I be all up in my passion from all the Moorish passion. All things considered, I start laughing. A grown man with a ponytail, another calling us Neanderthal, and he all pale. I mean, for real, this is what it come to, my brother. We got nothing better to do than talk down to each other. Yeah, we can be scholarly, or we can get gutter. We are the children of our father, and the breast of our mother has nursed us all. And first of all, we beefing while the peen trying to murk us all. You need to chill, my brother. Tell the elder the same, cause on the real, my man, I'm really about them things.
Check. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Hey, we about to get right. Come on. Come on in. We gonna talk some hip hop tonight. Oh my goodness, family.
An Egyptian adapt is a brother who lived by the universal science developed in the Nile. We call it Islamism, but it's the same, my child. Sit at the foot of a master. I train you up, but I might have to bang you up. I still love you. And those that's talking that this ain't Islam, everything the prophet brought is in the Quran. All the other stuff, prostrate and cover up is just the start. The nearest place to me, the law is the heart. You can dress like Imhotep, or you can dress like a herb. By the Moorish American Muslim unifies the word. You can say what you want about Dr. York, but he gave you
man, come on, fall up in here.
Appreciate that. You won't
How my
appreciate
mic
me.
sound?
Appreciate the holy and
How
divine.
my mic sound?
People refuse to
I'm
admit
telling you,
first that
tonight is the night. Like Betty Wright. Is that her name? Betty Wright, Mary Wright, some of them people. You know what I'm talking about. Hey, fam, share this at least the two platforms. Oh, we gonna turn up tonight. I can't wait. Hey.
We can turn it around, but we must unite. It's okay
What
to
up?
disagree, but we don't have to fight. Cause if we have
What
to
up,
fight,
nobody?
you know
Anything?
how we get. I'm still learning to love. No, I'm not there yet. So
How do I sound? Bang, bang, boogie. Yes, indeed.
We haven't made
This is the show that you want to see tonight. We started on time tonight because I'm here with the good doctor. The good doctor got the prescription. You know what I'm talking about? The good doctor got the prescription. Demetrius, did you share this twice? Who shared this twice? And music, did you share this twice? We need everybody to share this twice, because the real information don't get out unless we put it out. BTK Killer, B-Bill, we on time tonight. We ain't on Negro, Black, and colored time tonight. We on African diaspora time. That's right. We on good tether time. That's right. We always on time. We a universal family. We on time. Cryptonomic. We on time, man. We created the universe. I think. You know, they say we created everything. Well, one thing for sure and two things for certain. As a collective, that ain't no lie. Hey, family. What up? Corona Queens in the building. I mean, I don't think y'all ready yet. We got Dr. Derrick Colon in the building tonight. Family, listen. Before I go back in real quick, I want to share something with y'all. Family. Listen. I want y'all to get up in here first because we can't waste the good doctor time. He got the prescription, family. He writing scripts tonight. I wish I had my mom. He writing scripts tonight. Listen, family, y'all know I'm excited. When I start a show this excited, you know that there's something going on. If I start the show a little nervous, you know, they say I was stuttering last night. That means I got sensitive research, you know what I mean, where I don't want to give people bad information. You know, they're talking about Grand Sheik is stuttering, because I got sensitive research. You know what I'm talking about? But when I'm excited like this, look at your neighbor and say excited. When I'm excited like this means I got the Moab. Y'all know what the Moab is? No. We ain't talking about no Moorish stuff. The Moab, the mother of all bombs. We got the Good Doctor in the building, family. The Good Doctor is a producer of a documentary that may have went across each and every one of us, went right over our head. And in this documentary, the Good Doctor touches on what we've been discussing here. He touches on what I was trying to get through to our good friend Doggy Diamonds. I'm not going to give any details. If you haven't seen it, then hey, you got to go back and watch the video. It was a beautiful, beautiful dialogue between myself and Doggy Diamonds. This is going to be even greater. So family, we got to get the people in here. So family, enjoy the tunes real quick. I'm going to set myself up with a kombucha. And I can't wait for this one, family. But in the meantime, in between time, let's hear some internet prophets. Can we hear some of that? This is your one and only brother Tahaka Bay. Check 1, 2. It be me. It be me on the bar. Y'all some internet prophets and you need to stop it. Or someone catch you on the block and cock it. Or catch you at your lecture and rock your knocking. Yeah, man, and me, cause I'm exposed to your robbing. See, I used to be a robber, I was robbing the thugs. And the Asians in the hood selling nasty grub. I was only 17 and I didn't know better. Put them things in their face and said, give me the cheddar. But it really amazed me, the age of 40, that people will use the things that would annoy me to rob our people like Bibles and Qurans. Take your money and then they're gone. Shoot, selling, plagiarize books and dreams of unity. Blame the European, but look what you do to me. Got me thinking we gon' overcome, but when you cut your camera off, you're really one of them. You gon' have to watch it back for the rest of your life. I know good and well you can't sleep at night. You done robbed everybody from the hood to the burbs with your unks, your crystals, your books, your herbs. You convinced everybody that it's white supremacy. The fact of the matter is you're the real enemy. You've been lying to the people fat in your pockets. You ain't nothing but an internet prophet. You gon' have to watch it back for the rest of your life. I know good and well you can't sleep at night. You done robbed everybody from the hood to the birds with your unks, your crystals, your books and herbs. Now they calling me the op cause I revealed the scam. They will shake your hand and still grip your fam. They say Hotep, peace, black power, shalom. Assalamu alaikum, praise the Lord in Islam. At the same time they plotting to get in your pocket. They will white label sunglasses, cups and watches. Make a profit for the enemy they talk about. I can't understand why you ain't been walking out. You ain't noticed since you met them, you slipping in life. On Twitter like the pipe and it just ain't right. Bank account got light and you haven't seen the light. You burn all the sage and ain't changed your plight. Incense burning, crystals turning. Think to yourself, what you really learning? What you really saw? You gave him your all. He own a museum club in the internet mall. Selling deodorant and hurry up and buy. He don't really care if you're broke and you die. You just acting like you don't care either. This is pure evil. Have to watch it back for the rest of your life. I know good and well you can't sleep at night. You done robbed everybody from the hood to the burbs with your unks, your crystals, your books, your herbs. You convinced everybody that it's white supremacy. The fact of the matter is you're the real enemy. You've been lying to people fat in your pocket. You ain't nothing but an internet prophet. You gonna have to watch it back. We almost there. We at 98 people. I just need 100. I know we gonna get up to 5, but I need 100. I need 100. Your books. That's right. We at 98. When I get 100, I'm bringing in the Good Doctor. Send it to your friend. That's right. I'm doing like the drifters do. I'm doing like the drifters do. But before we bring the Good Doctor in, hold up. Hold up. The real enemy. Cryptonomics say a show don't start until we bring the horns in. The show don't start until we bring the horns in. Bring in the horns.
more you gon' remember.
That's right.
I'ma be that more you
Oh,
gon'
we got
remember.
100 in the building. All right,
Be that
here
more
we
you
go.
gon' remember. To Harker Bay, front line till the law call my number. I be that more you gon' remember.
Hey,
I'ma be that more you
I'm
gon'
in the
remember.
building,
That's
Charles.
right.
This one for
Be
Charles.
that more you gon' remember. To Harker Bay, front line till the law call my
If you
number.
a friend of the Lord, then you a friend of mine.
I was told to watch my enemy.
What up,
now
Charles
hold my
Taylor?
line.
This one for Stephen Ack.
They speak against
This one
me.
for
And
Christian
I'm speaking about the
What
prophet
up,
over
Black
the
Girls?
wise. Who
We.
was the first to remind
Oh,
you
yeah.
and bind you back?
I'm going
To a
straight
rock on the
radio.
mountains, Mississippi,
Harker Bay
and
Radio
Quebec.
tonight.
Told you wasn't black. Proved it with straight facts. You tripping off trucks. You need to be tripping off that. Now here we go again. Acting like you a slave. The same people talk European how to bathe. And looking at women buying European hair. No love for self, but do the men really care? Hell no, cause they got a love for Europe. Whole generation chasing pills, weed and syrup. Yeah, they all got it.
Wow,
Kodak, Amigos, Ross, Brazil. Where the love for the woman look like your mother. I guess they say it's all black when it's under the cover. Now sight, I be that more you gon' remember. I'ma be that more you gon' remember. That's right.
We
I be that more you gon' remember. To Harker Bay front line till the law call my number. I be that more you gon' remember. I'ma be that more you gon' remember. That's right.
We almost there.
I be that more you gon' remember.
In the building now. Oh, yeah. I don't know who y'all looking at.
You ain't building on the ground, then you
What up? Y'all don't know who y'all looking at. Family. We had to cut the music midstream. You know what I'm saying? Fam, let me tell you something. Shout out to my brother. I don't know if he want me to mention his name, so I won't. But if he do, I'll give him a shout out later in the stream. But my brother that watched the show, he must be an avid watcher, and I think he is. I've known him for years. But he must have been catching every show. And everybody don't say anything and say things in the comment, but he must have been watching, and he also must have caught Dr. Derrick Colon, a documentary, which I was unaware of. I was totally unaware of. So he sent it to me, and he said, you need to get in touch with this brother here. You have to get in touch with this brother. And anybody know me by now, I'm so busy that sometimes it's kind of hard. You know, I'll be juggling so much. But he was adamant about it. He was adamant. You have to get in touch with this brother. And ultimately, he got in touch with, I said, can you reach out to him for me? And bottom line, long story short, we here today, family. This is going to be a breath of fresh air for many. But for all those that really don't care about true history, it's going to hurt them a little bit. It's going to hurt. But mama always said, it's going to hurt me more than it hurt you. Now you're going to have to take this medicine. You're going to have to take it. So let me just yield the floor to the good Dr. Colon. Am I saying your name right, brother? Derrick Colon, is that right?
Derrick Colon.
Derrick Colon. See, I'm tripping. Colon. Derrick Colon. Derrick Colon. Hey, no, brother. Now let me ask you a question. Are you now? Listen, I gotta ask you because you've never been on Morse World TV. But as I said, I'm going to send you some videos, and you'll see what we cover. Are you an actual doctor? Because on the internet, people put DR in front of their name, and they don't. Are you an actual doctor?
I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a doctor of education. Yeah.
You're a doctor of education. Okay, like a Bill Cosby doctor.
Yeah, doctorate in education. Right.
The reason why I ask, because social media, man, you up there with that doctor. What kind of doctor is that? They're gonna start researching you, and then I expose Mr. Derrick Colon. He ain't no doctor, So we got that out of the way. Now, secondly, are you a hip hop historian? Are you one who was active during the period of the development of hip hop? What is your story as it relates to hip hop? What is your relationship?
Yes. So, first, can you hear me good?
I can hear you well.
Sound good. Okay. Yeah, man. I'm both of those, right? So I am first exposed to the culture in 1975. I'm 8 years old, right? I'm a child. grew up in the Bronx, and since 75, from then on, just been somebody who has been a student and a practitioner of the culture, really beginning about 10 years old, 77, to really, so I practiced, graffiti, b-boying, MCing. So those were the things that I was involved with. But then, being a student of history and just seeing this new thing that's come out with the rewriting of the history has really sort of gotten me on this journey to say, I have to start speaking about this because I love history. I'm a history teacher. That's what I do for a living. So it was just natural. But so both, because of my experience, it has caused me to, people throw those terms around, scholar, historian. I'm a student of the culture, and at the same time, somebody who does the research and somebody who digs deep into the weeds. That's what I like to say.
If you don't mind, when you say you were active in the culture and you practice the culture, did you actually rap and DJ? You said you did graffiti, but you actually rapped and all of that?
Yeah, I was an MC. Yeah, I was an MC.
You used to have bars? I mean, was you with a crew? Because back then there was a lot of crews. or were you?
No, I was by myself, and so my MCing began around the mid 80s till about 90, and then I'd start doing other things. Graffiti was a little before that. Right. B-boying was in the middle of that. So breaking, I was a breaker as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so growing up in the Bronx, were you around during the time as hip hop development? Were you in the parks? Were you around those notable names that we know now today? The brother Coke, Cash, all of these notable names that we know today as being the foundation of hip hop. Were you around then to actually witness the development of hip hop?
So yeah, that's a great question. So there's a lot of people that think that, when you say I was there, everybody's there is different, right? So somebody's there is going to be, well, I was there in 73. My there is 75. And so I lived on a particular block that's called Echo Place. And Echo Place is in the Bronx, and there's a famous park right down the block from Echo Place called Echo Park. And anybody that knows hip hop history knows this park, right? This is an early hip hop park, right? So you had people like Hurt played at Echo Park. You had Charlie Chase played at Echo Park. A bunch of people played there. To answer the second part of that question, because I was there during the inception. So and we'll get into this, my inception is definitely 75. This is my belief as to when the culture starts to form. And I'm going to give you my reasons for that. But to answer the second part of that question, was I around those guys? No, because I was still too young. They're older than me, right? But I'm like one of 1,000 other kids who lived in the Bronx and who witnessed the birth. We didn't know it was, it wasn't called hip hop. It was just a New York City street culture that was out. And so, the initial elements of the culture at that time would have been DJing and b-boying, right? Graffiti, some people put that in the mix. Some people don't, because it predates what came to be known as hip hop. But the DJing and the b-boying is really the foundation of the culture. MCing doesn't come until about 76, 77. So that's a little later. So yeah. So, but obviously heard about those names, knew those names, and then eventually as I continued into the 80s, definitely saw those people,
So is there anybody, as we do on this show, is there anybody can say, yeah, I know, like, whatever, what name did you go by? Is there anybody that say, well, yeah, I know Colon? Yeah, absolutely, he was there. Or how does that work? Because with the internet, you know what I mean? I peeped your documentary.
Right.
And they call your documentary anti-black. Yeah, did you
Right.
peep that?
Yeah.
They call it anti-black. But we're going to get to the historical side in a minute. But is there anybody that say, yeah, or anybody in your documentary? Because I didn't see it through and through. Have you interviewed anybody? And can you tell us a little bit about your documentary?
Yeah. So the documentary was done from a first person perspective. And this is pretty different. Most documentaries, you're physically able to interview people. I was sitting at home, and I had just been diagnosed. This was over the last year. I was diagnosed. I'm good now, praise God, I'm good now. But I was diagnosed with cancer. I had prostate cancer, and so I'm in recovery after surgery. And I remember a friend of mine reaching out to me, and he said, why don't I watch some of your stuff? And this is a dude that has no skin in the game. He's not hip hop, but he's a friend of mine. Also holds a doctorate. And he said, why don't you, while you're recovering, why don't you make a documentary? Why don't you use the material that you have, and why don't you, and I'm like, okay, ain't you supposed to like go out and interview people? And maybe it's, yeah, I mean, but use what you have. So I just started to sort of formulate a plan, talking with other people that I've been talking with, and I started to just put pieces together and just start filming. I'm of the opinion, bro, that we could sit around and say what we don't have and what we can't do, but let's use what we have and let's do what we can do. And so that started me to just start filming, and then getting clips, and using some of my own material from past videos to sort of build a grassroots case for the elements of the culture. And the main idea that I wanted to speak to in the documentary was the myth. I like to call it the myth that hip hop is not from the Bronx, but hip hop is from the South, specifically in the 1930s. And so,
before you go any further,
yeah.
where did I, the first time that I heard that was from you? Was that a common running theme in your coming of age of getting into the hip hop scene, or is that new? Where did that idea come from?
No, this is new.
Okay.
This is new to me. And it's really based with this group, the foundational Black Americans, who have come up with this thought process that since James Brown, because they many believe James Brown is the godfather of hip hop, and they give him that title and all that. And while we've used many of James Brown's music within the culture, because James Brown is from the South, that's where they're getting this idea from, that, well, hip hop comes from the South. So I wanted to, that's what that's what I spoke to initially in the beginning of the documentary. And then I wanted to take people through the 4 elements in order, which is first graffiti, DJing, b-boying, and MCing. That is the chronological order of the culture. And so a lot of people think, when they think and they hear the word hip hop, they think rap music, and they put that first. MCing, or rapping as we called it, is last. It's not first. In fact, the foundation of the culture is actually b-boying. And any of the old school dudes that you mentioned will tell you that the X factor, as they call it, to the culture is b-boying. We called it breaking, and then the commercial, industry called it break dancing. But b-boys make up the foundation of the culture. There is no hip hop culture without the b-boys. That's the beginning point. And we can get into those years and when that happens and who these people were, and because a lot of that is just lost in so much mythology that we miss a whole group of people that we've just never heard of. So therefore, because we've never heard of them, they don't exist.
Now let me deal with the elephant in the room real quick.
Yes, sir.
Someone said, "Oh, he's here because he's anti-Tariq." Let's deal with that real quick, brother. Do you have any anti? I like to look for the truth. You know what I'm saying? I'm anti-Tariq personally, and I put it out there. Personally. I'm anti-Tariq because I believe that he's not who he say he is. I believe that he's have ulterior motives. I don't believe that he's genuinely trying to bring something that's beneficial. I believe it's a distraction and a distortion of the actual history. And so I wouldn't, even if he was correct, I would have to question it and comb through it with a fine-tooth comb. But do you have any anti or any reservations as it relates to the culture with Tariq Nasheed?
Well, I mean, first of all, for somebody to say he's here because he's anti-Tariq, I didn't reach out to you. You reached out to me.
And I didn't know what you was about.
Right.
Because somebody told me,
that's
because
true.
of the documentary. I didn't know your documentary spoke some of the same truths that I was speaking to just 2 nights ago. I didn't know that.
That's true. That's right. So this is, this is a real beautiful connection because somebody turned me on to you and said, this brother wants to speak to you. So just so happens, so to answer that question in a nutshell, the answer is no. But I will say that I have seen Tariq's videos and him speaking on the culture. He knows about my documentary. He's spoken about my documentary on his platform. And it was from there that he said, I didn't hear this. Somebody told me he said this on one of his lives. I want to get Dr. Colon to be in the documentary that I'm doing so that I could get the other side of the story. But the reality is, he doesn't really want the other side of the story. He has a narrative that he's convinced is correct. And that narrative is that anyone outside of the foundational Black American lineage is not connected, has no connection to hip hop's inception. And that means the Jamaicans, Caribbeans, Puerto Ricans, Latinos, nobody else. It's specific to the lineage of the foundational Black Americans. And let's keep in mind, when he uses that term, and when I use that term, I'm not talking about African Americans. There's a distinct difference between the African Americans that rocked and helped to build the culture of hip hop and this group, the foundational Black Americans. That's a totally different animal that had nothing to do with the inception of the culture. Number one. Number two, they're not even from the Bronx. Many of these people are from other places, and they try to come and tell people who are from the Bronx what happened in the Bronx.
And
And
you
this
know,
is what, yeah.
I'm glad that you said that, because somebody wrote in the comment section. I gotta keep that comment flowing, and I'm gonna make sure that I have it prepared for every show. The brother said something to the effect that how can one from Alabama, by the way of California, give you a historical account about what happened in the Bronx during a time when he wasn't nowhere around, nor did he have any relationships, dealings, etc., with anybody in the Bronx. And from that, I see that he cherry picked those who can represent his narrative. And so,
Right.
to that point, you said he reached out to you, and how did that go? Before we get into the history.
I mean, to be honest with you, you know, I was at work. I got a DM on my Instagram, and I saw it was Tariq Nasheed. I'm like, okay, what's that about? So I looked at it, and he said, uh, you know, and I just actually put a video out a couple of days ago with the screenshot of that invite, and he said, Dr. Colon, I'm in New York. I'm starting to film for um, the hip hop documentary I'm doing, and I would love for you to be in it. And he left me his number. I called him, and we spoke. And I mean, to be quite honest, you know, he was very respectful, very, and we'll get into that a little bit. But he was very respectful, and we talked, and I told him, listen, since you're in New York this weekend, these are the things that are going to be happening in the city. And I would encourage you to go there, because this is where you're going to see, if you want to talk to the African American, the Puerto Rican pioneers, you need to be at these certain places, because the 50th anniversary is happening. So a lot of things is happening in New York at this point when he's there. One of them was Crotona Park, and Grand Wizard Theodore was playing that Friday. And Grandmaster Caz was actually hosting that. And he told me, I'm going to be interviewing Caz tomorrow. So I said, well, that's perfect. Why don't you go and bring your crew and talk to some people, man? You know, you have, I told him, I said, you have all these questions about whether Puerto Ricans were really rocking like that. That's where you need to go. Okay, so long story short, he never made it there. He never made it to the Yankee Stadium 50th event that happened. He never made it to the Sedgwick Avenue event that KRS-One put on at 1520. These were the spots. But he made it to one spot. He made it to Disco King Mario Day at Bronxdale. And that's kind of funny, because the dudes at Bronxdale carry the same narrative as Tariq. They are foundational Black Americans. So he doesn't show up to the events where he would really get some good information from pioneers on both sides, but he shows up to an event where he's going to get somebody who's going to agree with his narrative, and he didn't even really interview anybody there. So that's how that happened. He said, you know, I'll come out to where you are. And we had it scheduled. And there's just some things about, you know, I always say it this way. There's the leaders, and then there's the zealots. And it's the zealots that, you know, started putting things in the comments under my videos. And, you know, some people that are close to me saw that. And other people that I sought counsel, and they recommended. They said, you know what? I would not. And some of these are pioneers that I sought counsel to, that I spoke, you know, I reached out to. They said, I wouldn't mess with it, man. Because number one, number two, he has an agenda. He has this agenda that this documentary is going to focus on the foundational Black American creation of the culture, and that's where it comes from. So don't think that because you get in there and talk, he's not going to edit that thing to death to make you look, you know, incompetent in your history. And so, long story short, I decided to thank you, but no thank you. I'm not going to get in your documentary.
So when you look at like this term, that is this fairly new term, foundational Black American, what is your understanding of what that is? Because you say it's separate, and that's going to lead me into my next question about the culture. What is your concept of that according to what you know thus far? Foundational Black American as it relates to the term African Americans. You say these are two separate terms, these are two different groups, these are two separate people. Can you elaborate on that for a minute for me, so we can have some clarity?
Absolutely, absolutely. So what I understand it to be is um, a lineage-based group that does not trace its roots to the African diaspora. Their roots stop in the Americas, and no matter what you try to show them, I've been in these dialogues, and
Okay.
all right, so you mean to tell me that so where are your grandparents from? They're from the South. Okay, where are their grandparents from? They're from the South. Okay, but where are their grandparents from? I said, my point is, you got to get to the root. And they asked me the question, but why is that important to you? Where's your root? I said, I said, my root is the Taino Indians that were on the island of Borinquen when Columbus came and did his thing. Obviously, I have Spaniard in my roots, but I also have Africans in my roots. So I'm part of the African diaspora. My roots go back to the diaspora. And I said, I don't understand how you can say your roots don't go back to the diaspora. And I said, are you Black? Do you consider yourself Black? Obviously, I'm a foundational Black American. Okay. Do you consider Jamaican people Black? Yeah, to a degree. And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't even know what that means. To a degree, do they consider themselves Black? What does that really mean? As we get into this conversation with people who ascribe to, so that's what I understand it to mean, that they cut themselves off from their African roots. And I understand, that Tariq at one time was a Pan-Africanist, and he was, at one point he believed Herc, and he believed the origins of hip hop came out of Jamaica,
Well,
and then he changed that. Yeah.
Well, I think, I think, when from what I've discovered, that whatever is popular at the moment,
Yeah.
then he will jump on it. Whether it's pimping, whether it's macking, whether it's rapping, whether it's conscious community, whatever is popular at the moment to get $1, he's going to jump on it. But that's just my opinion on that. Now, what is your base? What is your foundational opinion? How do you feel about the foundation of hip hop? What is your? I was talking to. Let me rewind. Me and Doggy Diamonds was having a dialogue. And I said to Doggy Diamond, so what is your concept? I said, because the history says that Kool Herc is one of the founding fathers, and he is of Jamaican descent. And so that would rule out the idea that it was totally us, indigenous, FBA, whatever you choose to call us in this hour, that it wasn't totally us. If Kool Herc, as the history has said for a long time, and a lot of elder statesmen said the same thing that's all we knew, and then he was saying that, yes, some people put him up to that. He never said it himself, but ultimately I've seen Kool Herc do I went back and double checked. Kool Herc did plenty of interviews reaffirming that, yeah, he was there and basically accepting that that title. With that being said, what is your concept of the foundation of hip hop? Who was there? What group was there? And at the core, how was it developed? Now I know that's a lot, but you can attack it how you like.
Yeah. So Beautiful question. And see, this is the deal. These are questions that nobody's asking that need to be asked, because the concept is always it is Black Americans who are responsible for the culture as a whole. And that is true. Make no mistake about it. But not alone. And so when we look at, this is what I mean when I say digging into the weeds, because a lot of people don't want to dig into the weeds. If we dig into the weeds and we look at, let's just move graffiti out of the picture for a minute, because graffiti that starts in 68 easy, 1968. It's a New York City phenomenon, and we'll get into cornbread and whether it started in Philadelphia and all that stuff, and that's not true, and it didn't happen that way. But anyway, so let's remove graffiti, and now let's just deal with the DJs. Were there DJs before Herc? Absolutely. Were there DJs that had sound systems before Herc? Absolutely. Herc is unique because Herc brings something. So, they say, what did Herc create? Well, and I'll ask, what does the word create mean? It means to bring something into existence that was never there before. What does Herc do that the other DJs didn't do? Well, he creates this concept that he called the merry-go-round. He takes these obscure breaks that were always in records. All records had breaks. It's not the record. It's what we did with the record and what Herc specifically does with the record. It's already been known Herc's not the greatest. He's never has been the greatest DJ. Okay. But he takes these break sections, primarily James Brown, a lot of different other people. Make no mistake about it, it was not only James Brown. It was not only funk. It was disco breaks. It was funk breaks. It was Caribbean breaks. It was Latin breaks. Well, how do you know this? Because when you talk to the DJs who were responsible, there was only a handful. So Herc begins this, but he does not begin this in 1973. Well, how do you know that? That's the famous year, 73, August 11th, 1520, Sedgwick Avenue. No, I know that wasn't happening at that party because I talked to people who were at that party, and they've told me, including Coke LaRock. Now, I didn't speak to Coke LaRock. I've seen about 3 interviews with Coke where they've asked him, and he said, no, that wasn't happening at that party. That doesn't start to happen. The party did happen, but the merry-go-round thing didn't start to happen until he got to this club called the Hevelo. And the Hevelo was in 1975. So it's in 1975 that Herc he introduces his sound system, and he calls it the Herculords. That's the sound system. And then eventually it will become a crew. But the sound system is called the Herculords. And then Coke LaRock takes on the name Coke LaRock in 1975 at the Hevelo. The first place that Herc starts to call B-boys is at the Hevelo in 1975. So everything points to this place. And then talking with some pioneers that were there, they would say, oh, most definitely the Hevelo, while other people are playing in parks, nobody is doing what Herc is doing. But they'll say, but he's playing black music. But he just adopted to black culture. I said, well, obviously, Jamaicans are black. He considers himself black. His roots are Africa. So there's no denying that. But when you think of the Jamaican sound systems that happened in 1952, and that's another subject. So, but let me get back to that. But so Herc is one. In the same year, 75, you have another one of Caribbean descent, Grandmaster Flash, Barbadian. He's from Barbados. He's playing in 23 Park in the South Bronx. He's developing this system called the quick mix theory, and he presents it at 23 Park in the South Bronx. Then you have another Barbadian and a Jamaican who is known as the Master of Records. He's known as Africa Bambaataa. And it's these three, but it's not only them. Then you have another DJ who's with the Brothers Disco. His name is DJ Breakout, famous Breakout and Baron of the Funky 4 Plus One More. DJ Breakout is African American. And then you have DJs like Disco Wiz, who's Puerto Rican. Casanova Fly, Grandmaster Caz, who's African American. You have Charlie Chase, who's Puerto Rican. You have Tex DJ Hollywood, who's Puerto Rican. You have Disco King Mario, who's African American. These are the Grand Wizard Theodore, who's African American. These are the foundational hip hop DJs who are playing the breaks for a specific audience. It's the B-boys. And Herc names them, we call them breakers. This is a specific audience. But then it gets into a whole nother thing with who were these breakers? Because the common narrative is that the first breakers were in other words, you said it, you just said it without saying it. Everything is originates from Black culture. And when as we dig into the weeds, we see no, there was a collective, but a lot of people don't know who these people are. So they just say they didn't exist. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the reason why I think this is important, because I don't understand why people think that it's so important to exclude other members of the diaspora for their contribution, as if it's to be disregarded, thrown to the side, and just erased. When in fact, one of my favorite movies till this day was Beat Street. And the part that we laughed at a lot was when Ramo got hit on the tracks. Ramo! And we didn't see Ramo as a threat to the culture, but we seen it, even it was a movie, but we seen it as an addition to the culture. We seen it as a collaboration of the culture. And so now what we see is that it's like the European does with history, that he or the FBI files, they black out what they don't want you to see, and then you got to fill in the blanks, when in fact, seems to me that Bronx have always been a mix, a melting pot of cultures, even till this day. You know what I'm saying? So it wouldn't be a stretch of imagination to see the contributions and the collaborations in hip hop in its inception. So when you were there, was majority, because you know Crazy Legs and all of that was when we looked at outside of I seen Kryptonami was talking about breaking Little Lee. What Little Lee was in breaking, I think. You know what I'm saying? Outside of that, you know, a lot of the breakers they grabbed them. Now this was the 80s, of course. They grabbed them off the street. You know what I'm saying? And majority of them in B Street was Latino.
Right.
So was that always like that?
Okay. And that's a great question, because this is the thrust of what Tariq is going to try and prove, that the original B-boys, breakers, were all African American. So we got to dig a little bit. Can I go there for a minute?
Absolutely, absolutely. Right. I'm a history buff and I'm a research guy. So absolutely. And let me say this, family. You know, we always research the researcher here. For anybody that get caught in their feelings because Dr. Colon is saying something that you're not familiar with or you disagree with, just go back and research it. Don't be a fool and fly off the cuff because you may not have researched it, you may not be familiar with it, and you say, oh man, he got agenda, oh man, he got a plan, oh man. Just go and research it. It's called an interview, it's called a podcast, and we are all trying to get to the truth. Therefore, research me, research the brother, and get to the truth. But so far, for me, this brother is an encyclopedia on the culture so far. Let's see how it go. Now go ahead, brother. Take it away.
So when it comes to b-boying, breaking, there's a precursor. I don't even like to call it precursor, but there is an inspiration. In 1969, 68, 69, you have this dance that comes out of the outlaw culture. Outlaws are another term for the gangs. The outlaw gangs of the 60s and the 70s used to wear the jackets with their names on the back of them, the motorcycle boots, gangs like the Black Spades, the Savage Nomads, the Savage Skulls, the Chingalings, and the list goes on and on. This culture, this outlaw culture, both in the South Bronx and in Brooklyn, created this dance that is called the rock dance. We've called it, as time went on, we've called it uprocking. And it's kind of a dance that looks like you're fighting each other. You're stabbing each other, you're hitting each other, uprocking. But they called it rock. That's what they called it. The creators of the rock dance are Latinos. That comes from the Latino community, okay? But there's also another component. Yeah, there's also another component, and you saw that in Beach Street during the subway scene. That's what, it wasn't quite like that, but that's the gist.
Yeah, but we know they had to choreograph it and polish it up. Yeah. But when you say it, that's the first thing that jumped to me. Absolutely. Go ahead, brother.
That's the gist. But so then you have this dance, and so the Latinos create this dance. And on the other side of this is something called burning. Now, burning had the same idea. It's embarrass your opponent, mush their face, pretend that you're grabbing their head and hitting them with a baseball bat and knocking it over it's burning. So the B-boys that went to Herc's parties that he called B-boys originally were really the original term was burners. So you had people like, he claims to be the first break dancer. We're in debates about that, but his name is Trixie. And Trixie admittedly said, I was a burner. Everybody that was around those guys were burners. You don't start to see the breakers, the B-boys, that go from top rock, up rock, to down rock, what they call down rock, floor rocking, concrete rocking, until late 74, 75. This is when you start to see that. But who do you see? I'm going to name these crews. Some people are going to know who they are. Some people are not. And I would challenge you, go do the research. And this is the order of this happening. This is from 75 to 78. You have these particular crews. You have a crew in 75 called TBB, the Bronx Boys Rocking Crew. I want you to listen to the names. None of these names have the word breaking or B-boy in it. The Bronx Boys Rocking Crew. You have a crew called Sal Soul. You have a crew called the CC Crew. I'm sorry, before Sal Soul. Before the CC Crew is a crew called Star Child La Rock. The next crew is called the CC Crew. The next crew is called the Rockwell Association. And then you have the Zulu Kings. Okay. The only crew that is non-Puerto Rican is the Zulu Kings. All those other crews are Puerto Rican b-boy crews. This is beginning in 1975. When you ask people about these crews, they'll say, I've never heard of them. See, the only people they've heard of is Rocksteady, because that's what they're Crazy Legs and Rocksteady. But TBB, that first crew I mentioned, Rocksteady crew comes out of TBB. TBB disbanded in 1979, and Rocksteady was formed, and then Crazy Legs gets involved. He's not the leader of Rocksteady. He's never claimed to be. He is given a chapter in Manhattan, and then eventually he takes over the whole crew and does wonders with it and takes it around the world. So it's the Puerto Rican crews that hear me now, I'm not saying Puerto Ricans invented breaking. I'm saying it was a combination of blacks and Puerto Ricans together who created this dance on the floor. And then in the 70s, somewhere in the 70s, 78, 79, the African-American b-boys stopped breaking. And they given reasons why. And then all of a sudden you start to see the dance go around the world. And the people who brought it around the world are the Puerto Ricans. That's undisputed. Every movie you see, you mentioned it. First movie is Wild Style. Who are the b-boys at the jams in Wild Style on the floor? It's the Puerto Ricans. Who are the ones popping and locking in Wild Style? It's the African Americans. Again, together. Okay. Then you got Beat Street, mainly Puerto Ricans. Then you got, first time we really saw it across the world was in Flashdance. In that one scene in Flashdance where you see Rocksteady crew dancing to Just Begun. That's Rocksteady is a primarily Puerto Rican crew. The New York City Breakers, primarily a Puerto Rican crew. These are crews, okay? But this does not mean, and I am not saying that Puerto Ricans started breaking. In my humble opinion, based around the evidence, it is a combination. But what the foundational Black Americans want us to believe is that, no, they don't even call themselves African Americans. Foundational Black Americans created b-boying, and Puerto Ricans got involved in the 80s when Beat Street came out. And I'm saying, you're not doing your research. That's not the study. That's not the truth. I lost you, bro. I can't hear you.
Laughing at some of the comments, so I had to mute myself. But I don't even think that seems to really fit logical, rational thinking, because when you start looking at some of these documentaries, I mean, these cheap, we didn't have much, but some of those grainy little pictures, and you start to see the Puerto Ricans, and then because Hollywood come running after it's already developed. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And when you get to some of these grainy little videos, and it gets to the point of Wild Style and breaking, these brothers, Puerto Ricans, they polished. Make no mistake about it. They are polished. They just didn't come up last night and started doing this stuff.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it was deep. It appears to be now, I wasn't there, but it appears to be, because I've been a part of one who loved the culture since I could remember. And I know without a doubt of contradiction that they were so polished that it couldn't have happened in a studio, in a warehouse, to get ready for a movie. It just don't make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
That's right.
Now, one of the questions that I want to bring forth is when I was talking to my brother Dougie Diamonds, who is a fabulous hip hop journalist. He is of the thought he don't want shout out to Dougie Diamonds. he doesn't want to yield that it was anybody other than what is considered to be foundational Black Americans, African American, whatever. You know what I mean? He interchanges them, seems. But what I said to him that, okay, if it's not Kool Herc, if it's not some of these other brothers, and I say we all brothers, some of these other brothers that maybe had origins in the islands or the Caribbeans, if it's not that, then can you give me a name of someone that we can look to and say, okay, this one was there before Herc. This one just don't get acknowledged. And he said it was us. That's it. That's all. So he never gave me a name. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you, is there a name? And again, I want to underscore that. That's my brother. That's my man. But he couldn't give me a name. But he still stood on the concept that it's us and that's it. That's all. I'm asking you, is there a name of one that considered to be FBA that would exclusively hold the mantle of the inception of hip hop?
Yeah. So I've seen an interview with Doggy Diamonds and somebody else who brought him the information. I mean, that name would be Disco King Mario from Bronxdale. The story goes, Disco King Mario was doing this in 1971. But again, as we dig deeper into the weeds, we see he was not doing what Herc was doing in 1971. He wasn't extending the breaks, number one. Number two, there are no B-boys, so he's not doing that for B-boys. Is he playing music? Yes. Is he popular? Yes. Is he playing in parks? Yes. But he doesn't become a hip-hop DJ until at least, from what I've been told, 1975. This is when he starts to play with the other hip-hop DJs. Now keep in mind, Mario is responsible for putting Bambaataa on. So Mario's, but it's not hip-hop then. It's too early. It's not even the street thing that we called hip-hop later. That's not happening yet. So, and also, Disco King Mario is a black spade. All of these guys are black spades. So Disco King Mario's a black spade. Africa Bambaata's a black spade. There's another DJ called Cool DJ D who's a black spade. But they're DJs. The hip-hop thing don't start coming until about 75. So Herc begins doing his thing 73-ish, but really 75 is the inception. So I don't know what Doggy Diamonds believes, because you obviously said he didn't really name a name. That's probably, based around the interview I saw with him and this other brother, that's the name that came up, that Herc borrowed all of this from a DJ by the name of Disco King Mario, who just got a street named after him in the Bronxdale section of the Bronx. And no doubt, part of the hip-hop chronology, but he doesn't start out that way. He's not playing hip-hop at the beginning. Herc does something different. He's specific. Flash does something different. He's specific. These DJs are specific. There's disco DJs, and then there's breakbeat DJs. There's a difference. Like, you could tell. Mm-hmm.
When did the term hip hop become the term to describe the four elements that you spoke about?
Yeah. So.
And let me say, this is very interesting to me. I know people probably say, oh, you don't have nothing against, you got something against the Rico. These are really organic questions that I have about the culture, because I'm interested in it. I love it. I've been a part of it in some capacity all my life. As you can see, I open my my whole show rapping, and I'm a half 100 years old. So you got to have a love for it. But with that being said, when was that term actually coined to describe the art form?
So that's a great question. We got to go back though, because there are the first MC crews don't come about until late 76, 77. And that is Flash and the 3 MCs, who would later become Flash and the 4 MCs, and then it would be Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. They start off as Flash and the 3 MCs. There's 3 MCs. There's Melly Mel, his brother Kid Creole, and Keith Cowboy. Those are the 3 MCs.
Raw.
Raw. It is said that Keith Cowboy, along with Lovebug Starsky, used the term hip hop in the 70s during their rhymes. This is what's been said. But then you also hear it on the first national rap record, Rapper's Delight. You hear it at the beginning, hip hop, hibbit, hibbit. But the term hip hop as a culture comes about around 1981 through Africa Bambaataa. He's the one responsible for taking the elements and creating a culture. The graph writers, the breakers, the DJs, the rappers. Let's create one family, and we're gonna call this hip hop culture. And he's responsible for that, Africa Bambaataa. Yeah. So that's where we see that. Yeah.
Okay. And so now here we go. When one says that, okay, hip hop started in the South in the 30s. Somebody mentioned that hip hop started in Egypt. Somebody also mentioned that breaking started in Brazil. So if one would go and venture and say, okay, before the 70s, they were doing what is known, what would come to be known as hip hop. And the term wasn't coined until the 80s. Would it beg to a reason that in 75 it actually wasn't hip hop either?
That's a great question.
I'm just playing Angel's Advocate. I'm playing Angel's Advocate because you hear people all the time. I've been talking about this for the last maybe a few weeks, off and on, and somebody mentioned that okay, it started in Egypt. I mean, they went way back. It started in Africa. It started in Brazil. It started this, and I understand what they're saying. You know what I mean? Because similar moves and talking over beats, and I mean, I get it. But if the term hip hop was not fully developed and given an identity until Bambaataa, wouldn't it beg the reason that, hold up, it was still in the developmental stage?
So, yes. What needs to be understood is that in this developmental stage, the question that has to be asked is, what makes hip hop hip hop? It's the DJ and the b-boy. Those are the foundation stones. The rappers are later. Graffiti writers are earlier. It's those two foundation stones. So, people have been rapping, but no, remember, rapping is later. So there's no rapping yet. I know people been saying rhymes for eternity. People been rhyming. People been writing on walls. Is that the grassroots culture from the 70s in the Bronx? Okay, so we talked about this a little earlier off camera. We said, if we look at the 1930s videos and these dudes doing moves, but they're dancing to banjos. They're dancing to harmonicas. There's no DJs. Right. There's no break beats. What makes breaking is the break beats. it's the funk, it's the soul, it's the breaks. That's not happening there. And I agree, there's nothing new under the sun. But to create something that has never been done before is what hurt does. Okay, this doesn't mean nobody was playing music. Everybody's been playing music. But there's a difference because you have to put things in their context. You can't have this. So I always say this. I'll say, so you're trying to tell me that it starts in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and then we don't really see that ever again until the Bronx in the 70s. What it disappeared, then it came back, then it no, it is a specific, it's a specific timeline, it's a specific time frame, it's a specific place, it's a specific people. Not everybody was into hip hop. It's specific kids who are doing this. It's not all black people were not into hip hop. All Puerto Ricans were not into hip hop. All Jamaicans were not into hip hop. It's specific, right? So those are good. Those are good. No, those are good talking points. Like, all right, let's make this make sense because they were doing this and it wasn't named hip hop, but you see what they were doing. Okay, but you couldn't be doing it without the other parts of it. In other words, you can't say, well, that's b-boying, but we didn't call it b-boying. It's only b-boying if you have the music that goes along with the b-boy, what we call the b-boy anthems. So again, influence is different to me. This is my humble opinion. Influence is different than precursor. So somebody would say, no, they were doing that. The breakers in the 70s got that from the dudes doing it in the 30s. I'm in the 70s. I never sat down as an 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kid and sat down and watched the 1930 black and white movie to get those moves. We're in the Bronx, bro. We're not playing in our house. We're playing outside. We weren't playing video. Everything was outside. We're inventing games outside. We're outside all day. We're not sitting around watching 1930s movies. And number one, I've never seen these movie clips until YouTube because they weren't, probably my parents might have seen them or other people's parents. But we as kids who developed all this street stuff, we're not sitting home watching these old movies. So where do we get them from? Some of us were watching karate flicks.
That's right.
And you could see some of the moves in the karate flicks. They're doing crazy moves in those. So yes, inspiration, most definitely. But you can't say that over there is this over here. That's like saying, because two birds have feathers, they're the same bird.
What's funny to me, like it just makes so much sense, and it seems to me that it's a no-brainer that it was a lot of different nationalities, if you will, within the diaspora was making a contribution. I think it's very clear. I don't think why that's such a bad thing. I don't know. Let me show you something.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that,
mm-hmm.
being from the DMV area, go-go is a popular music. I mean, super popular. I mean, it doesn't get much airplay. It doesn't get much stream play. But in a certain area in the DMV, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, when I was a little boy, you had teenagers, that was us, that they would say would be FBA over there with FBAs, but they were us, were taking equipment out of school music class,
mm-hmm.
taking canisters from behind stores, and they were making bands. I mean, and they were serious. Now, I seen it. I was a part of it. I was just blown away. Even till this day, as it still thrives, not a bunch airplay, not a bunch of fanfare, but it still thrives. And I can say without a doubt or contradiction that that music has not been tainted at all from its inception. At all.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at hip hop, though, from the first time that I laid eyes on hip hop in the 80s, it was always somebody else amongst us making a contribution. I never seen hip hop without that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I was born in 73.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I'm coming of age in 88, 89 and stuff like that. But I never seen hip hop without the contributions of others. I never seen it. And I'm just saying, okay, 73, we Foundation, African American, whatever we choose to call ourselves today, creates it. And now that fast, it gets taken over by quote unquote Puerto Ricans breaking. Because by the time the 80s come, that was majority of what you seen was Puerto Ricans breaking
Right.
and popping. Could nobody, very few, Turbo and Lil Lee maybe, but very few when they put out their movies, man. Very few
Right.
could get close to them.
Right.
It is what it is. But and nobody's seen that as a threat though. But today it seems that they're trying to make it as if it's a threat that other people a part of our diaspora makes a contribution. Now, how does that become a threat? Maybe you can
See,
answer that.
yeah. I think the whole idea is it goes back to this idea with saying, well, Puerto Ricans or Caribbeans and Puerto Ricans are guests in the house of hip hop. My question is, how can any of us be guests if we're native to the house? We're native to the house. We're born and raised in the Bronx. We're born and raised in the culture. We're not, a guest comes in later on. So if it's true, no, y'all didn't come to the 80s. Okay, but you made a good point. But then how do we learn what we will learn? Then we must have learned and did all this stuff in the 70s and then came out in the 80s. Either way, if you want to put it that way. But I can say to you, I'm older than you are. I can say to you that I've never seen a time where there has never been a Puerto Rican presence, a Jamaican presence. I've never seen a time where that has ever been, where it was just one group of people. And what I want people to be clear about what I am saying, because people are going to say, "Oh, he's trying to say the Puerto Ricans created." No, I'm not. I'm saying this: hip hop culture is a collective of Jamaicans, African Americans, and Latinos, mainly Puerto Ricans. That is the collective together.
And let me say that was my statement when me and Doggy Diamond was here. I said it just appears to me that I wasn't there, and I haven't talked to a large host of people who were there, but from where I stood and studied the culture and trying to give my part to it, because it was a release just like it was for the children in the 70s. It was a release for me to be rapping. It was a release for me to listen to KRS-One and all of that. I haven't seen it any other way either. I haven't seen any other way. And now I don't see how we would allow this to be this eraser moment and just delete, control, alt, delete elements that made this art form such a great art form and a world renowned phenomenon. And just,
but I think
it's weird to me.
I think the problem is that when most modern people, this generation, thinks of hip hop, they think of rap. They think of one element, rap. They don't think of the culture. They don't think of graffiti, DJing, b-boying. They think of mainly rap. So yes, here's what I would say. Yes, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the face, the foundation, the creators of the MC element are African Americans. That is a no doubt. So that's what most people think of.
And let
But
me
y'all didn't create the music. We're not talking about the music alone. It is a culture.
But when you look at Kool Herc and you're not into the label identity concept, you see a brother. You don't see a Jamaican unless somebody tell you.
Right.
Unless
Right.
somebody tell you, you know.
Well,
It,
if you heard
unless you were there.
Herc,
If you were
well,
there,
yeah. If
but
you
if you
heard
were
him
there, you
talk,
may
you could
know.
tell.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. If you
yeah.
were there, you may know. But if
Right.
someone was just to say, yeah, this guy is one of the founding fathers of hip hop, and you just seen a picture, you wouldn't know. You're like, that's a
Right.
brother. That's it.
Right. Right. And but that's a reality that it's true. He is black. He's
Absolutely.
black. Flash is black. Bambaata's black. Puerto Ricans, this is what I mean.
Look,
For me,
like this
the
person said,
African.
Herc look and sound Jamaican. What is a look Jamaican is, man? Like I seen this. Let me get off of that, man. I can get with sound Jamaican, but look Jamaican, unless he a Rasta, you know what I mean, with the real hardcore dreads. And I know he got dreads, but I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Herc could pass either or from features. You know what I mean?
Sure.
He could pass. He don't get stuck in the Jamaican box unless he speaks.
Yeah.
If nobody know. If you know, you know. But if you don't know, nah.
And this is what I mean. It's this, at least with foundational Black Americans, the FBA crew, it is this colorism. So in other words, somebody like Roberto Clemente is black. I mean, he looks black. He looks like you. But somebody like Fat Joe, now he ain't black. But
Yeah.
he's from the same African diaspora. He's from the same roots. None of us are, we and I know as a Moor what you hold to, so I understand that. But it's ridiculous to think that Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, they are people of color.
Absolutely.
I don't know how you get around that. And so it's really a sad argument because it's divisive in nature, but you can see the leader who's trying to cause the division by saying, and see, the problem is, bro, to be honest with you, because I'm the one saying this stuff, it's problematic for a lot of people, because who is this light-skinned white Puerto Rican trying to tell me about my culture?
Yeah.
You get it? But I live there. Some of the people saying this are from LA,
but you know,
Detroit.
That's right. And the funny thing about that is when you look at a Fat Joe, I've been rocking with Fat Joe since you got to flow, Joe. You mean Joey Crack? I've been rocking with Joe for a minute. And so, but when you look at Fat Joe, his peer group that is not Puerto Rican and of the American experience, African American experience, if you will, accepted him, help him thrive. I mean, there was no conflict there. There was no conflict with Big Pun. None whatsoever.
Right.
Now we're in 2023 and there's a big conflict. Now Big Pun, they say you're trying to, what did he say about you? Anti-black hip hop. You're trying to steal the culture. So why didn't his peer group Pun and all the other? Let me show you something. Nori, I just seen an interview with Nori from Drink Champs. And he was talking to Trick Daddy. Yep. And he was talking about contracts and how the contracts was set up to rob everybody. And he would say we were so adamant about getting out the hood that we signed. As long as we get out the hood, it is what it is. It's always about getting out the hood. So we took the money. He was like, I even signed a contract for reggaeton and I don't speak Spanish. Mm-hmm. I thought Nori was Latino all the time. I thought he had elements of it.
No, he is.
But he said he doesn't speak Spanish in this interview.
Yeah, I don't speak Spanish.
And the funny part to me, right? But this is the funny part.
Nori's Puerto Rican.
But this is the funny part. The funny part is that in this hip hop culture, you see all different things happening for the sake of advancing the culture or getting themselves out the hood. And so I looked at a comment a minute ago. They say, Audio Cyrus say, well, white people, quote unquote, was in hip hop in the beginning too. Well, I beg to differ in that just a little bit, just because we were in the ghettos, and normally the ratio between us and European in the ghettos was an odd ratio. You know what I'm saying? So in my neighborhood, it was only two. I mean, I lived in a us neighborhood, so it was only two Europeans. You know what I mean? They was cool with no beef or nothing like that. But normally the numbers are so small that it missed the mark to even document it in history when you're looking at the ghettos of the 70s and the hoods of the early 80s. You understand what I'm saying? So, but when you're talking about Puerto Ricans and quote unquote black people, they always lived together in the 70s and the 80s. That ain't even a stretch of an imagination. That's just the facts.
Right.
So how do you separate a developing culture where people are living together anyway?
Right. Right. And what's funny in that interview with Nori and Trick Daddy, he starts off the interview and he says to Nori, you look mixed. And he said, yeah, I'm black and Puerto Rican. And Trick Daddy says, Puerto Ricans are black. Yeah. And Nori says, what are you trying to say? He's like, no, I'm not trying to say nothing. I'm just trying to say y'all are black. So it's not hard to tell. I mean, anybody that knows. And so this is not really, as far as, Mr. Nasheed and all we can do is wait for the documentary to come out and see what the pioneers are saying and what they've said in the interview. And he's made it clear. And that's why I did the video on Tariq where you hear him speaking. He's saying these dudes are going to straighten all this out. So it's funny that these guys, these pioneers, if some of them are not pioneers, he labeled them all pioneers. Some of them are not pioneers. Lord Jamar is not a pioneer. There's other people that are not pioneers. But the ones that are pioneers, I don't know how they could say, nah, there might have been one or two Puerto Ricans with a straight face. I don't know how they could say that. But that's on them. They see, the beauty of this is that everybody has their story. I have my story. I wasn't everywhere. And nobody can say they were everywhere. I wasn't everywhere. I know where I was and I know what I saw. That's it.
And before we close out, because I like to do an hour and 30 minutes, brother, you gotta come back. I wanna look at your material. And I know this ain't gonna be the first time, the last time that we speak. Because I think this was hey family, y'all like this interview, press 7, family. Press 7 if you like this interview. If you like more of this interview, please press 7. I'm gonna be going over your material, and I'm gonna be bringing you some questions on it, because I see you get a lot of attacks, bro. You get a lot of attacks, and they give you attacks as a culture vulture, but I want to see somebody refute your information. You know what I mean? And this is the problem, man. We don't even know how to disagree in a healthy manner. When someone disagree, they'll start calling you tethers. They'll start calling. That's why I play around with it. We're going to take the term tether. That's right. It's ours. We taking it now, and we're going to rearrange it and flip it, make it a term of endearment. But they'll start calling you tether, culture vulture, anti-black culture, and all of these things, as opposed to, you know what will be better? And I tell everybody that against what I do here, prove me wrong and shut me up.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Prove me wrong and shut me up. That's the best way to shut somebody down. Prove it wrong. So, brother, in closing, anything you like to add, brother? Brother, this was a phenomenal interview. I don't care what anybody said. I don't care what they talk about. This was a phenomenal interview, and I invite anybody that has information that is ready to have a conversation. As long as you can be respectful, you are welcome on the platform. But let me yield the floor to my brother. I appreciate you, bro. Anything in closing?
Yeah, man. No, thank you for having me. Thank you for putting me on your platform. I would love the opportunity. I have reached out to Doggy Diamonds to get on his platform.
I'm gonna call him tomorrow.
And to speak.
I'm going to call him tomorrow.
I would love
for
that
you.
opportunity. Yeah, I would love that opportunity to just break it with him and hear his hear his explanations, and he can hear mine. And again, I can only speak to what I know and what I've seen, and then the research I've done. But we're always learning, man, and I'm always willing to learn. And if I get something wrong, I'm gonna be the first one to say, you know what, I need to correct that. But so far it's been what it is, and it's me speaking with those who were also my elders who were there. And you get two sides of the coin. You'll speak to some who'll say, nah, there weren't that many of y'all. But then, I just spoke to two other pioneers the other day, and they were like, who's saying that? Nah. These are like 67-year-old men,
right,
who are pioneers. I'm not going to name who they are, but they said, nah, that's not true, man. This is multicultural.
I'm about to do my own documentary. That's right. I'm going up in the Bronx.
Do it, man. Do it, man.
What impressed me is I was listening to a Coke LaRock interview, and I didn't know that everybody was starting to pattern themselves after Coke. I mean, that little box right there of Coke LaRock, and it grew into a Scott LaRock. You know what I mean? The LaRocks. You know what I mean? His name, like that's a legacy in itself. Why is it that people cannot appreciate the greatness of this part, but want to disregard this part? But because I never knew that need to be underscored, that there was a bunch of LaRocks after Coke LaRock. I never knew that. I've recently found. I thought that was. I was like, wow. People were calling themselves Coke LaRock after. I mean, LaRock after Coke LaRock. Right. I thought that was phenomenal. Like, those are the things that should be celebrated. Those are the things should be highlighted. Not talking about these tethers trying to steal our culture. What? Insane to me. But brother, I appreciate you, bro. I'm gonna be reaching out to you. We got to do this again. In fact, I'm gonna call Doggy Rock. Everybody named Rock. That's right. I'm gonna call him tomorrow, and I'm gonna see if y'all can exchange information. I'm pretty sure he'll take a look at this, and I'm pretty sure that won't be a problem. I mean, as I know Doggy Dimes, I don't think that'd be a problem. He's very interested in and furthering the culture. And like I always tell him, I tell him to his face and I tell him behind his back, he's an excellent, one of the best hip hop interviewers that I've ever seen. And I think it would be a missed opportunity for him not to interview you. So I'm definitely going to reach out for him. But thanks again, my brother.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you, bro. Hey, am I able to take this and put it on
brother,
my YouTube channel?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Help yourself, brother. Help yourself.
All right, man.
All right, my brother. Soon. Appreciate you. Yes, indeed.
Peace. Grace and peace.
Yes, indeed. So, family, you got to love that, family. This is how, family, can I tell you something? This is where I want to take Morris World TV. I want to really do my research and expose these frauds, but I also want to do my interviews because I feel as though that I'm a phenomenal interviewer. Yeah, I got an interviewing skills. You understand what I'm saying? What y'all think? I think I am a phenomenal interviewer. And I think I need to what they say, I think I need to explore that a little bit. Boris in the building. I think I need to explore my interviewing skills a little bit. And my thing is, anybody that I interview, I'm not biased. You know, I have my opinions. I'm not biased, but I still have my opinions. But I also look for the grift. I look for the fraud. I look for the misinformation, and I look for filler fluff information. I didn't get any of that with Doc. I didn't get any of that with Doc. Doc was very, very versed in the history. He got names. He got time. He got. I mean, very, very good. Very, very good. Bang, bang, boogies. Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite. But with that being said, Truth Seeker, Moors help educate the white Europeans. We help educate the world. You did too. You the hip hop Gil Noble. Y'all tripping. But anyway, family, I'm going to see y'all tomorrow, family. We gonna get it in again tomorrow, family. I appreciate y'all, family. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Islam. I'm trying to be your friend, man. That's right. I'm trying to be your friend, bro.
Up on the way out, family.
Help me out.
Hit that thumbs up.
Meet me halfway.
Hit that share. Appreciate you. And if anybody hit the Cash App, I thank you. If you hit it later, I thank you. I thank you for everything that you do, family. Peace and love.
Let me be your friend. Peace and love. Let me be your friend. Peace and love. I said you ain't never met a more like me, and you ain't never, ever gonna meet one again. I wanna be your friend. Peace and love. You let me be your friend. Peace and love. Hey yo, I used to be a thug until I met the prophet. Now I'm all about love, truth, peace, and freedom. Till I return to Allah. One day we gon' meet him. I'm all about justice. That's the focus of the message. Sometimes Asiatics make me wanna forget the lessons. I be all up in my passion from all the Moorish passion. All things considered, I start laughing. A grown man with a ponytail, another calling us Neanderthal, and he all pale. I mean, for real, this is what it come to, my brother. We got nothing better to do than talk down to each other. Yeah, we can be scholarly or we can get gutter. We all